Welcome back to Fieldcraft Chronicles. Today we're exploring a battlefield you've never seen, one fought not with bullets and bayonets, but with postcards, posters, and promises. This is the story of how ordinary objects became weapons of mass persuasion, and how the greatest survival skill in the Great War wasn't always knowing how to fight, but knowing how to think. Picture yourself in a muddy trench somewhere along the Western Front in 1917. The air reeks of cordite and decay. You haven't seen your family in 18 months. Your rations are mouldy biscuits and watery tea. Then, drifting down from the grey sky like autumn leaves, comes a leaflet. It promises hot meals, clean beds, safety behind the lines, all yours if you simply walk across no man's land with your hands raised. This wasn't just paper, this was psychological warfare, and it was as dangerous as any artillery barrage. The British, Germans, French, and Americans all mastered this invisible battlefield. They understood something profound about human survival. The mind breaks before the body does. A soldier can endure cold, hunger, and exhaustion, but introduce doubt, fear, or shame into his thoughts, and his will crumbles. The Germans dropped millions of leaflets over Allied lines, describing in mouth-watering detail the rations awaiting prisoners, tinned peaches, fresh bread, real coffee. They knew that men surviving on hardtack and iron rations would find these words harder to resist than enemy fire. Meanwhile, Allied propagandists countered with their own leaflets, painting surrender to Germany as a death sentence, using vivid imagery of starvation camps and brutal treatment. Back home, the war reached into every kitchen, every parlour, every street corner. Governments transformed everyday objects into silent recruiters and moral enforcers. British posters deployed shame with surgical precision, images of children asking their fathers what they did during the war, knowing full well that question would haunt any able-bodied man not in uniform. The American Uncle Sam poster, with its pointing finger and direct address, made recruitment personal and inescapable. You couldn't walk through a city without the war demanding something from you. But, the most ingenious deceptions were the ones that made sacrifice actually feel like participation. In the Habsburg Empire, citizens traded gold wedding rings for simple iron bands stamped with patriotic slogans. These gold for iron campaigns, they turned personal loss into a kind of public virtue. In Germany and Austria, communities erected these massive wooden statues, where citizens would hammer decorative nails in exchange for war donations, transforming fundraising into a sort of ritual. The British, on their part, deployed actual tanks as mobile tank banks, letting civilians climb inside these steel beasts in exchange for purchasing war bonds. These weren't just fundraising gimmicks. Honestly, they were masterclasses in making the abstract horror of industrial war feel tangible and, controllable. Perhaps the most insidious propaganda, strangely enough, lived in soldiers' own pockets. Cigarette companies included collectible cards depicting military equipment, medals, enemy uniforms, and even battle tactics. Soldiers traded these in the trenches, studied them during quiet moments, and absorbed their messages without really realizing they were being educated in what was considered acceptable military thinking. Children collected them too, making sure the next generation grew up fluent in the language of war. These tiny cards, they achieved what no poster could. They made war culture intimate, collectible, and honestly normal. The Great War's propaganda masters understood a truth that, every modern survivalist should recognize. The most dangerous threats aren't always visible. Information can be weaponized. Persuasion can kill as efficiently as poison. In today's world of constant media, recognizing psychological manipulation is just as essential as knowing how to purify water or start a fire. The soldiers who survived the First World War weren't just physically tough, they were mentally resilient, able to filter truth from lies even when both arrived on official letterhead. That's the lesson from this forgotten battlefield. Survival isn't just about skills and gear. It's about maintaining clarity of thought when the world, wants to cloud your judgment. Subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles. Share this with someone who values both history and self-reliance. And remember, the first tool in any survival kit is a mind that refuses to be deceived.